right, well, that's just booting up. So should we dive in and get started?
Yeah.
Yeah. Aaron, I can send out the link again to everyone that's registered just to make sure that they get the join us now kind of thing.
Perfect.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We have a great presentation lined up. We're gonna have some delicious wine. I'm Stephanie, I'm Director of Operations at the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce, and we're here to help you guys in any way that you need. And we're really happy that Aaron brought this idea of this Explore Local campaign to us so we could showcase and tell the stories of some of our members and help drive business in our local communities. So Aaron, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Firstly, for anyone who doesn't know me, I am Dr. Aaron Binstock. I'm a chiropractor and co-owner of Strive Health and Performance. We're located in Coquitlam, just across the street from the newer Safeway. Aside from chiropractic, we offer physiotherapy. We do registered massage therapy. We have an active rehab specialist who's a kinesiologist. We also specialize in concussion management, and we're supposed to be opening next week. So stay tuned. We just need to hear some guidelines as to how we can open safely. So stay tuned for that. But yes, thanks to the Chamber for helping me put this all together. It's been really fun so far. Again, we're just trying to bring all the awesome stuff that Tri-Cities has to the comfort of your home, doing some fun stuff, especially today. So today we have a sommelier, and his name is Kai Chang, and he is from VinoZen. And we're gonna do it a little different today because previous times it's, we're talking about the business, which we will, because that's really important for him to understand and for you guys to understand, and because you guys are supporting local, which we really appreciate. But I've kind of been asking the questions, but this time, we are getting a free wine tasting class here. So I'm basically gonna let Kai take over, and we have unmuted you, well, not quite yet, but we will unmute everyone, which is different than the past because we want you guys to ask questions. He is the expert here. We don't often get an opportunity like this, so feel free to engage, ask away, have your wine ready. This is the best part, okay? So without further ado, I'm gonna pass it over to Kai. So Kai, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and let's get the ball rolling.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. Thanks to Tri-City Chamber, and also thanks to Dr. Binstock to host this and make it available. It's really nice to see everyone. My name is Kai, and I founded VinoZen Academy to help bring a different, my take on how to appreciate wine. It's really about not just spending the money and buying a wine and come home, drink it, and then forget the next day. So it's more about getting the most out of each bottle by spending the money and understanding the reason behind why, and being able to be in the moment and just in front of you a glass and have that conversation. So that's what I really go for. And I don't know if you can see it right down here. My academy is approved by WSET. WSET is Wine and Spirit Education Trust. It's based in London, UK, and they're the largest and the best in class for wine, spirit, and sake education. So my course and my classes is available for, it's hosted in Port Coquitlam, and also I have a location in Burnaby to help people whoever want to get into wine. And if you're crazy a little bit enough to go all the way like me, some screw loose or something like that, to go all the way, I have a diploma in wine, which is the level 4. It's one of the hardest things that I ever done, aside from raising my kids. So I would love to be able to show you the way I appreciate wine. But before that, I just kind of want to, if everybody can unmute themselves, just speak of your mind and tell me what you think. If you have any question, ask me anytime. But I wanted to kind of go over a little bit of what we will be talking about today. So I wanted to, because a lot of people who purchase wine, it's more about, I guess, friends are over and or you're using it to cook, or you want to host a party but don't know what to pick. So you go to, you beeline to a bottle that you really know, right? But there are a lot of other available options out there. And what do you feel when you see that? Do you guys, can you guys all see?
Yeah.
How do you feel when you see all this? Where to start? You see a lot of different bottles, and you probably go through that. And maybe for the people who have been shopping for wine, maybe know a little bit more, they start looking at different pricing, different regions, different scores. Maybe people will look at, oh, this is a 95-point wine and it must be good. So there's a lot more than that. And the thing that I like to go after, these are probably the things that we really know about. You probably see these a lot. These are one of the, are few of the most highest revenue selling wine, at least in BC. A Potted Red and Yellowtail Shiraz actually made top list in the world when they first came out because they're really approachable and they're really easy drinking. So that's why people love them. But they are probably like what, $15 a bottle, maybe even less, $10. Barefoot is probably about like $9. So let's say a Potted Red, $15, $16 wine. There are other options. There are definitely other options around the same price that are much better quality. I'm not saying that a Potted Red is a bad wine, but there are better wines out there with the same amount of money that you pay. So if you're, this is what I'm about. It's really about taking that journey, explore, and trying new things, okay? And then at the end of the day, if you're like me, you're probably going into sort of this kind of area where even though probably most of you never really seen them, or you probably know Oculus from Mission Hill, it's at the bottom right here. But a lot of these wines are world-class. They're really premium. They're really sought after. And they're wines that daily wine drinkers, like the mass majority, don't really go after, just because I guess it's still a little bit harder for people to translate the taste and the quality into price, or the other way around. So this is why we really need to know and learn about wine tasting, so that we can elevate our experience whenever we do have it, right? So the way that we look at different wine and how to shop wine, there are different categories, and to go into each one would take few hours on their own. But these are the few things that we really look after to shop for wine, not just look at the price and look at the color, and that's it. There are a lot more that are involved. And if you like and want to know more, sign up for my classes, and I would really love to share. I'm one of those that just never stop talking when I start. So if you have any questions, do feel free to just kind of jump in at any time. But today, what we're really after is the wine that I hope you went out and purchased, and then we can go together. Yeah. To kind of walk through the way I taste. It's called Tasting by VinoZen. And the normal method people really usually know is you look at it, you smell it, and you taste it. But we're really after the purpose and the way that we are enjoying wine. So the mindset is really important. Why are we buying that wine? And when you buy it with a purpose, just like you're buying a house, you're looking at all the different aspects of a house before you make that purchase to really get your money's worth, because you really are, it's really important to you. And wine is really the same thing, right? So you look at the mindset, why are we buying this wine? For what purpose? How are we getting out of it? Like if you're doing the blind taste, if you're a sommelier or you're a wine consultant or wine critic, what you do at this point is really try to get what you already know about the wine, try to get that out with no preconceived notion, with no assumption, with no expectation to go into the wine, so that you can really get what the wine is trying to say. So that's the mindset. So now that's all take. We usually start with the white. And when you look at it, it's the color that we look at. And the color is really, it can already tell you a lot. So typically if the wine it has maybe oak or other more advanced way of production, the color will show. The variety will show up in the color as well. Like Pinot Grigio, I don't know if you know that variety. Pinot Grigio, lighter color. Chardonnay from, let's say, an oak influenced Chardonnay will have a little darker color. And if the wine is young, if it is just produced like last 2 years, it will be lighter in color. If it is darker, it actually gets darker with age. Whereas red wine gets lighter with age. Okay, so you can already know a lot just by looking at it. But one of the most important thing is we look at the quality and whether or not there are faults. If the wine is faulty, okay? If the wine is faulty, then it will already show in the color, or the way that it may have sediment, it may have excessive bubbles that are not supposed to be there. There are a lot of them that you can look at it. So if you're having that in the restaurant, you can actually send it back with confidence. But we will be able to tell more by just smelling at it. So I actually spend most of the time smelling rather than drinking, just that I'm trying to find out more story from it. So again, if you're smelling wet cardboard, if you're smelling like a lot of nail polish, vinegary, some animal like barnyard animal, sometimes they actually mean the wine is faulty and you can actually send it back. Other things that we're looking for, so if you smell it and then you swirl and smell it again, this is when you incorporate it with oxygen and with air to release that flavor. And you smell it again, you will find that you can smell more from the wine.
So Kai,
and the things that, yes.
Sorry, so for this wine in particular, like what should I be smelling? Like,
yeah, so with this wine, just like I was about to kind of go through, but this one you will have apple, citrus, and you have a little bit of melon. So citrus would be like lemon peel, lemon zest, a little bit like mandarin, a little bit of peach, apricot, and melon. There are some fruit and they're clean fruits, but there's not a lot of other things. Like there's no oak, there's no vanilla, there's no like toast, and there's no old wine smell. So the thing that we go through are, the first thing is the primary aroma are the fruit aromas. So when we practice smell, I have a really nifty little companion right here. It's called Le Nez du Vin. And these are little bottles that has different flavors to help you try to identify and isolate. So it has like smell of melon, it has smell of lychee, grapes, all kinds of different smell. And if you are familiar with that, you try to find them in the wine. So it's a really good practice that way. So when you smell this, the first thing that you try to look for are floral characters and fruit characters. For white wine, we typically start with like apple, green apple. Is it ripe apple? Is it just ripe apple? If it is like kind of a green unripe apple, there are different variations of it. And then we go into citrus, so lemon, orange, and different parts of citrus. When you go in further, as you approach to a more like warmer climate wines, you'll start to find stone fruit like peach, pear, and you'll start to find like melon, pineapple, banana. And that's what we call a primary. So it's the flavor that comes from the fruit itself. That's the primary aroma. And then we start looking at the secondary aroma, which is there's none here. But if a wine has gone through oak, so if it is being fermented in oak or aged in oak, it will have flavors like spices. It will have flavors like vanilla, coconut. It will have some smoky smell. I don't know if you've been to Kelowna, the West Kelowna. There's this winery called Quail's Gate. They're famous for their Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And their Chardonnay, especially their Stewart Family Reserve Chardonnay, go for it. That has a lot of smoky flavors in there. And that's quite a bit of influence from the oak. And because the smoky is when you toast the inside of the oak, so the inside of the oak is charred. And as that goes through, at one point, it helped harmonize the wine, it helped remove the harshness of the wine, but it also imparts some smoky flavor into the wine that way. And there's another process that creates dairy and buttery. So buttery flavor. So if you taste like some Chardonnay, you will have like some really, really buttery flavors and creamy flavors, dairy, yogurt. That is another process that is part of the secondary aroma. Secondary aroma is what we get from winemaking decisions. So oak would be one of them. Another one would be like if you find like toasty flavors, when the yeast that they use to do a ferment, when they finish their process, they're left in the barrel, and some producer will start stirring that yeast. It's called yeast. The dead yeast are called yeast, L-E-E-S. When you stir that, it incorporate more rounded mouthfeel and also incorporate some toasty feel and toasty nuttiness into the wine. So if you taste those, that's because what we call yeast stirring process. French, it's called batonnage. It's that process that creates that flavor. That's part of the secondary. And the tertiary, the final one would be from old wine smell. So as the wine developed, the fresh fruit would become more of a variation of the old wine. So it would be like a fresh, let's say a fresh grape would become raisin, a fresh fruit would become a stew fruit or cooked fruit. As the wine ages, that will develop because of the oxygen and the way that all the component inside the wine. So for those that kind of a little bit hesitant of consuming wine on a daily basis, it has a lot of vitamin C, a lot of potassium. So in moderation, it's actually it's not bad for you. It's good for you. So now we're tasting. Now is the main event. So when we taste, we draw air into your mouth. It's the same idea as if you were swirling the wine. It's to let the air stir it so that the flavor fills your mouth. So for those that has the wine, try that. For those that have the wine, then if you bring that air and stir it in your mouth, you will get more of that flavor. So for those that have the wine, I want you to try this thing. Pinch your nose and drink the wine. So this is the difference, because all the flavor, all the fruit flavor, all the secondary, all the primary, secondary, tertiary flavor are actually from your nose, which is why I smell wine more than I taste wine. I spend more time smelling it, because you can get that all that air, aroma, all that flavor just from smelling. But if you pinch your nose, what's in your mouth are nothing less than like a battery acid or something like that, a very acidic water, because your mouth can only taste what? Salt, sweetness, acid, bitterness, and the tannin for red wine, and also the what's it called? The tannin for red wine, the drying sensation, that's touch. And also spiciness is also touch. But the flavor from your tongue that gives you the sweet flavor, the sour flavor, the salty flavor, they're all that. And then also there's this one more called umami, or savory, that those are the only things that can be sensed from your mouth. The rest are from your nose. So that's why like sommelier and people who work in wine, the nose is actually really important. And this is actually something that we don't really develop when we grow up. We develop our hearing, we develop speech, we develop our sport, like athletic activities. We don't have one thing that really help us develop our sense of smell. And I really believe that the sense of smell really help you. It connects directly into your brain because you have to really process what that smell is. And as you develop it more, it's kind of like an exercise for brain. It's a brain workout, okay? And it's actually really helpful. Now, when you taste, the first thing that you note is whether or not it's sweet. Sweet is typically from the tip of your tongue. So this wine is dry. That means there's no sweetness, okay? This is also why when you go to restaurants, one thing you will be able to tell whether the restaurant really prioritize wine experience and customer dining experience is whether or not they offer you the right kind of drink stemware for you to appreciate the wine. The better kind of stemware will have a thinner rim because it actually allows you to have the wine touch more of the tip of your tongue, so you can taste more of the sweetness. You can sense that more. A lot of restaurants, they don't want to break their glasses, so they have thicker and more sturdy glasses. That's okay, but sometimes it actually diminishes people who really want a better dining experience. Now, second thing is how acidic is the wine. Acid is sensed by the side of your tongue and how fast you salivate. This is a high acid wine. So when you drink it and you spit it out or swallow, you immediately start to salivate, and that's a high acid wine. And there are some lower acid wines, your salivation wouldn't happen maybe when you after you count to like 1, 2, or 4 seconds, and that's a low acid wine. And another thing that we look at is for white wine, we don't look at tannin because there's no tannin in the white wine. The tannin comes from the skin of the grape. And there's no color, there's no tannin. Okay, the tannin and the color comes from the skin of the grape. So if you don't incorporate that into winemaking, it won't come off in the wine itself. Another thing we look at though for the white wine would be the body. The body is really the mouthfeel. It's the difference between drinking water versus drinking soup, drinking skim milk versus drinking whole milk. So we have a question here from Arcanil. What makes the wine dry? It's lack of sweetness. So if you have a piece, let me see if I can do this. This would be a fun thing to look at. Okay, so this is, we were going high school chemistry a little bit, okay? So in the grape, we have sugar and water. So we just do a sugar and then a water. Water, it comes up in the wine. So we don't add additional water when we make wine. So the sugar, fermentation, we add yeast to it. And then it turns into alcohol and carbon dioxide, CO2, excuse my drawing. And then there's heat, okay? So for a wine, the kind of yeast that ferment the wine, typically it stops at 15% alcohol, okay? But if you have only enough sugar to turn it, all of them, the yeast is able to turn all the sugar into alcohol, then you have no sugar left, or very little sugar left that's not discernible by your palate. That makes the wine dry. But if you ferment it to a point, either to a 15%, or you stop it before it reaches 15, it will have some sugar left. Then that would make the wine off dry, medium dry, or sweet, or lusciously sweet. Ice wine is lusciously sweet, okay? Because there's a lot of sugar when they during that process that's left in the process. So here's a little bit fun that we do. If we stop it in a different way, let's say we use, it's got too much sugar to ferment it, so that would be ice wine. If we stop it midway by adding brandy, it becomes port. That's how Portugal makes it. It's a port wine, it's a dessert wine, it has a lot of sugar left. If we filter this, the yeast out and it stops midway, like a lot of German Riesling, they have a lot of sugar. They either lower the temperature so that the yeast stop working, or they filter out the yeast before they complete all that process. Then it will have sugar left. Then you will have a sweet wine. So a lot of German Riesling, if you can already know whether or not, you don't have to look at the BC liquor label, whether it's 1 or it's 10. That's their number to rate the sweetness, 1 to 10. The 0 would be a dry wine, 1 would be a little bit dry, and maybe you can sense some sweetness. You don't have to look at that anymore. You can look at the alcohol content. A lot of German Riesling, they have like 8%, 9%, 11%. It's a sweet wine. It's going to be some sense of sweetness when you just look at the alcohol content. Now, normally, the winemaker would let the carbon dioxide escape so that there is no carbon dioxide left in the wine. But what if we find a way to capture it? We become sparkling. It will become champagne. Champagne is a type of sparkling. Not all sparkling is champagne. So champagne is only made from a region called Champagne in France. Any other sparkling, don't call it champagne, okay? If you call it champagne again, don't tell them that you take this course. All right, okay, are there any questions?
I have a question. Back when you were talking about the aging of, I guess, white or red, does that play a factor into the quality of the wine?
Yes, so a lot of different ways to go about it, really depending on, remember the list in my presentation saying that there are different things that we look for when we buy wine. Region is one of them. And let's say a region that really want to showcase ageability of that wine, and they would age their wine before they even released. And in a lot of different places, they will have a high quality wine that you have to actually take home and be patient, like a port, a vintage port, a real vintage port. If you buy it, the recent one is the 2016 in the store, you will have to wait 20 to 25 years before you can open them to really get it to show. Same thing with a lot of Bordeaux first growth. So that are the top chateaus in Bordeaux. You really have to, if you buy a 2015, don't drink in that very night. You have to wait patiently for 20 years or at least 10 years for some of the lower grade ones or the entry level ones. You can have them a little bit later, a little bit earlier. Now, what if you don't want to wait that long? What if the winemaker really want you to enjoy it? There are some people that are looking ahead and release wines that are ready to drink, but they're from 10 years ago, right? So a good quality wine and the ageability it really comes hand in hand. Like when you taste more wine and the structure inside and how well balanced it is, you will be able to start to tell whether or not the wine is ready, first of all, and whether or not it will actually evolve into something even better, or it's actually past the prime, okay? So in this case, with this wine here, so I don't know how many of you had it. It really had to think about how winemaker want you to enjoy it. This is a high acid wine, and this only has primary fruit. And the fruit is friendly, and it's got some form of different type of fruit. But the winemaker really want you to enjoy it in the hot summer day, and they don't want you to wait. So you don't buy this and then you put it in the cellar or put it on the shelf and forgot about it for 10 years. That's not what the winemaker want you to do. They want you to go home, freeze it, take it out, and drink it. So this is the kind of wine that we have. And this wine is from Sicily, the island Sicily. Typically, the Pinot Grigio that people from Italy specifically, it's the style is really fruit forward and it's really refreshing, citrusy, and high acid. They want you to drink it right away, and it's really clean. This one from Sicily is hot. It's a really, really hot climate island. However, they were able to make a high acid wine that's still refreshing. This is slightly more fruity than a typical northeastern Italian Pinot Grigio. And the reason I picked this wine, it's really, really give you a bang for the buck. It gives you a lot of more enjoyment, like you're drinking a $20 or $25 bottle. Okay, this is really in comparison to that. And when I first had it, I was really, really impressed by the amount of stuff in there for this kind of style. Now, this is not ageable, and the winemaker don't want you to age it because there's not enough stuff in there to sustain that. Okay, so think about sorry?
No, I went,
Oh,
interesting.
yeah. So there's not enough stuff in there for it to be sustainable in 10 years time. So these fruit will be tired maybe in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I think this is the next 3 years time, but I hope you don't buy it and keep it for 3 years. Just drink it now. However, before we finish up, so there's the smell and the palate. We talked about the body, and then we also talk about the kind of flavors. Whatever you smell, you will taste them, and you might be tasting something else on your palate because it goes from a different place into your olfactory sensor. And then we talk about the finish. It's how long all that flavor lasts in your palate. It's also another thing that we look for in a good wine is how long it lasts. But it's also depending on the kind of style of that wine. So in an extreme example, a really high quality sake, they don't want the finish to be long. They want a really, really clean, crisp finish, and that's the quality of a higher end sake. But not in wine. Wine, they want you to have a longer finish. The longer the finish, the longer the nice things last. Not the bitter, not the sour things, but the fruity, the complexity that lasts through in your palate. The longer that lasts, the better the wine. Okay? And then you bring everything together to really look at whether or not this wine is good quality, it's acceptable, it's poor, or it's very good, or it's outstanding. And we look at all these things, and this is what we look at now. I will teach you how to use them to assess a wine when you come to my course. Okay? It's a lot to know. It's not like I don't want to, because we will be spending the next 1 week together just to talk about this.
Well, the good news is, which I didn't mention, is at the end of this, Kai is giving away 6 vouchers for 15% off to take his course. So that's a great reason to take the course right there. So that will happen at the end. I do have a question from Joanne, though. She just wants to know if you have a suggestion for a nice red wine, either Merlot or Pinot Noir, to give as a gift.
Okay. The way I look at gifting is that, and Belen, I will answer your question in a bit as well. The way I look at big gifting is just like you buy gift for anybody. is you look at that person, okay? So what does that person mean to you, and what does that person enjoy, and what does that person like? So if the person likes a heavier wine, or they like a bold wine, or if the person really like to wine and dine, or they are a home cook, things like that are the things that we look at. So a really nice Merlot, I can always go with Bordeaux. And BC, Okanagan has a lot of great Merlots, but really looking into maybe your own price point and what does the person mean to you. Is the person worth for you to spend like $70 on a bottle, or $20 on a bottle, or $1,000 on a bottle? Because there are $3,000 bottle wines, and the most expensive recent release bottle of Merlot. Anybody wanna guess how much?
10,000.
You're way out, but it's about $3,800.
Wow.
It's a Chateau Pertus. It's a right bank Bordeaux. It's all Merlot, and recent release is 3,800 to 4,000. And in the BC liquor store, they have this bottle from 2009. They're selling it for 7,700.
Wow.
So yes, there are that kind of wine, and there is definitely a market for it. But is the person that you're giving it to really can get the most out of it? That's another question, right? So we have to really look at it. Now, a Pinot Noir, another thing, the most expensive Pinot Noir, recent release, it's about $10,000. That's the most, that's crazy. It's crazy. You either buy a Prius or you buy a bottle of wine. So, yeah. But if you want to look more, I could really like to, because I always have some go-to wines at different price points. And Joanne, like at the end, we'll share my contact information. You can also go to VinoZen.ca. If you want to find out more and maybe just get a quick suggestion, I am more than happy to do that for free, to kind of help you find the right gift for the person. Okay, but I'm not gonna do it for free forever. So Belen, can you send the name again of the kind of wine that need aging for 10 to 20 years? How long does your high-end wine need and should age for? So this is more about wine appreciation, and a lot of times people between they buy it to they consume it is in a matter of maybe 8 weeks. But they are actually open. Most of the wine are actually open a lot earlier than they should. So there are a lot of different wines depending on the white or the red. But the premium quality wines, I'm not talking about price, but the premium quality wines, even the wine that we're gonna taste, this is like a $16 bottle of wine. This had 10-year aging potential, and we're already 5 years in. It might be able to last beyond that. So it's not about the price of the wine, but it's really about the region and the producer and what they really want to look for in expressing into this wine. So when we look for the red, there's one more thing that we look for would be the tannin. So hold on, you mentioned looking for.
Steve, oh wait, are you answering the question or just moving on to?
Yes, I'm answering Chelsea's question.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, so looking for a number on the label to see how dry the wine should be. Do all wine labels have this? So this is a tough question because the number I was referring to is actually the alcohol content. And it's actually, you have to really match the wine variety, the grape variety to the region to get a sense out of that, I guess the alcohol content. 11% wine, 11% alcohol wine from one region may mean a sweet wine. In this case would be like a German Riesling. Whereas if you go to another location, 11% wine would be a dry wine. So it's hard to know just by looking at that number alone. But let's say if somebody give you a bottle without any of that label, you need to be able to decipher that. It's kind of like, all of you have seen Matrix. It's kind of like looking at that code, that green drop-in code, and be able to see the house and be able to see the person, be able to see the car, because you know how to decipher that code. And by studying. And it's kind of like reading the world's history with the lens of a wine. So when I started learning the wine from 2013, you started looking at the world from like the history, from the culture, from climate. You learn about geography, you learn about a lot of other things. You learn about science, you learn about art. So it's actually quite interesting the way that it kind of all go about. But okay, so Macaulay, what type of food would you pair with this white wine? Fish and chips. A nice fish and chip. If you're going a little bit fancy, a nice grill salmon. The way I like to do salmon is excessive amount of olive oil. So it's kind of like half poached in oil and it's half pan fried. And then I'll add a little bit of butter in it, not a little bit, quite a bit of butter in there. And then I'll kind of baste it. And then you can have like rosemary and thyme on top. And then once you put it into a plate, you can just put a little bit like caper on it. And if you're really fancy, you can have some kind of a puree on the bottom, and that will make a really nice meal. And that meal probably will run you $40, $50 at a restaurant. You can do it in like 20 at home. Which is why I stopped eating steak. Steak is one of my favorite food, and I stopped eating steak outside because I can make it myself. All right, so Howard, how long before you drink a white versus a red? Okay, so so are you talking about once you open and how long before you need to finish them, or are you talking about how long do you need to keep them, like aging them?
No, I was talking about a white wine. Typically, you leave it in the fridge so it's chilled, whereas a red wine is more room temperature. So how long do you take, when you take the white wine out of the fridge, do you let it sit before you drink it? And then the same thing with the red. When you open it, how long do you let it sit before you drink it?
That's a very good question. And a lot of questions, my answer to a lot of questions is going to be, it all depends. But because it really depending on what kind of white wine you're having. And there's some white wines that you don't let it sit before it kind of come down to room temperature. Let's say a Riesling or this wine, you want to drink it chilled, well chilled. Okay, and there are wines like the full body Chardonnay. You want to freeze it, but you don't want it too cold. There was this one point when I went to a restaurant and they're really into wine pairing. And when I order a white wine, it's a white wine that needs to be only slightly chilled. But then when they brought it to my table, it was really well chilled. It was about like 8 to 9 Celsius, where it needs to be about 13. But that's over chilling a wine because the white wine that I was having is more full body. So it will lock up all that flavor by having it over chill. So what you do, I know that when we hold the glass, we always tell people not to hold the bowl because it's kind of warm up the wine. But in this case, you do want to warm up the wine, so you hold it this way with your palm in that case. So it's really all depends. And a red wine, it's also different. It's really based on the body and what kind of style it is. I guess the red wine that we usually drink are probably like the general consumer, they buy a red wine that's quite smooth and slightly sweet. And it's probably a little bit of body and a little bit of weight to it. And that's something like a potted red, or a California red, that the style is a little bit heavier, that you would want it to be at room temperature. Okay, the $38 bottle of wine that I mentioned, you will want it at a room temperature. When I say room temperature, it's about 15 to 18. Okay, so it's still a little bit cold. So when you have a proper wine fridge, you set the temperature at around 15 to 18. So you open it up when you take it out, and that would be a right temperature. Versus a light body red, a lot of time it would be like a lighter body Pinot Noir or Beaujolais. I don't know if you heard of that name before. Beaujolais, BC Liquor, they celebrate Beaujolais Nouveau every November. So you'll see that name from time to time from BC Liquor Store. And that's a style that need the wine to be chilled. So when I say that, it's about 11 to 13 degrees Celsius. In that case, you do chill the wine and you don't wait for it to come back to room temperature. And if you leave that wine in the room temperature, before you drink it, put it on ice or put it in the fridge before you drink it. So again, really depending on what kind of wine that you're having to get the most out of it. So that's not, sorry?
I was just gonna say, and that last part of the question was also with when you cork it or pop it, do you let it sit for a certain amount of time before you pour it and drink?
Depends on the wine. Like say a Beaujolais, you don't. Okay, let's say this Pinot Grigio, you don't. But again, that $38 bottle of wine, you would probably want to age it for like 20 years before you even consider opening it. But when you open, hang on a second, I'll be right back. It's nice to have something like this. It's called a decanter. Okay, so you would allow for bigger contact for the wine to contact with the air so that it opens up. So for a big wine, sometimes they go to sleep, and then you might be opening it at a time where it's sleeping. You need to wake it up. And a gentle way of waking it up would be slowly pour it in and just let it sit there for a few hours. A more aggressive way of waking it up, you probably seen one of those things where you pour it through and it will kind of get bubbles through, or you pour it into here and you start swirling, and that would be a more aggressive way to waking it up. And really depending on the kind of wine that you're drinking, we don't really need to worry about these kind of little details when we're drinking the wine that we normally get, right? But when you are getting a wine that needs to be done this way, you will need to know. So this is why, like, you don't open it up and just immediately pour it into decanter or immediately pour it into a glass, like a full glass, and start drinking. For people who have a little bit more experience and practice, you will pour a little bit into your glass, taste it to assess whether or not it's ready. If it is a lot of tannin, not a lot of fruit, and you know this wine is supposed to have more fruit, that means it needs to be decanted. That means it's not ready. But if you are drinking a wine that's beautiful, fragrant, then it's ready. You don't have to worry about any other additional steps. It's really about knowing the region, knowing the grape variety, and knowing the producer, and knowing the style of wine. So this is what I'm really trying to promote, is to be more sensible in terms of the way that we purchase wine. Just kind of like if you want to buy, let's say, a smartphone, you buy it, one Android or iPhone, why do you pick one over the other? Or you just want one that works? If you are buying a phone that just makes phone calls for you, why buy a smartphone? It's kind of like that. You spend $1,000 into a phone, get more out of it by learning how to do things. It's the same idea. So otherwise you don't spend that much money. You don't need to. And then at that point, you can get the same amount of joy out of a $20 bottle versus a $100 bottle. So Judith, Prosecco. Villa Teresa, it's one of the most popular ones. Prosecco also has different levels, and the people that go for a lot is Bottega, Villa Teresa, but there are higher end Proseccos that goes down to the region, okay? So it's a long name, it's Valdobbiadene, start with a V, it's a long name. That's a smaller region that gives you a higher quality of a Prosecco. It will give you a little bit more complexity and a better mouthfeel and more balance. Okay, and Prosecco is a really enjoyable wine. There is like a reason Prosecco a hype that everybody is buying Prosecco, and the Prosecco price is no longer cheap enough for people to be drinking them on a daily basis for the same kind of reason. So people kind of move off to other type of sparkling. And there, I always have a lot of different recommendations for wine. And it's kind of like, what I really want is to teach people how to fish rather than fish for them. So another one, what's the trade-off of going a quick wake up versus the longer decanting? Now, if the wine has more of a nuance and going for an elegant and graceful style, like a lot of Burgundy style Pinot Noir, they're going for finer details. If you wake it up in an aggressive way, it may lose that delicacy a lot quicker because you're increasing and speeding up that contact with oxygen. It will break it up. Now, a longer decanting will allow that to slowly wake up. But if the wine can actually withstand that, obviously we always prefer not need to break it up. But if we need to, we also have to look at a wine that can withstand that. Now, we haven't really tasted this, but the fun thing about this wine, if you bought it, this is the Confidential. It's from Portugal, from Lisbon. And the reason why it's called Confidential is that they are not telling us what the grape variety is in there. Then they have over 10 of them in there. And this is what is called, what they don't even know themselves, because they grow all of them on field and then just pick them. And then they just make them all together. This is called a field blend, so that they don't even really need to know, or they want to know, they don't know the percentage of each grape variety even, because they just pick it, ferment it, and make it together and put it in oak. And this, you will start getting like even the red fruit and black fruit, the black cherry, red cherry, and there's some raspberry, there's a little bit of strawberry in there. These are the primary fruit. Now you'll also get a little bit of dirt, earthiness, mushroom in here. This is a 5-year-old wine, so it's starting to develop. So that's a tertiary note. If you find some spices and some woodiness, that's from the oak. Again, this is all depends, Belen. But organic wine, to some people, it's a really nice thing to have, because that means they have a controlled usage of pesticide. They don't overuse it. But in some region, they really need to. Otherwise, they cannot really control the kind of pests and the diseases and the different kind of thing that can, like fungus, that can go on in their wine. It's just the region. The region, if it is wetter, they don't really allow for a proper way of organic growing. But they make world-class wines. Now, if you use sulfite, you will need to, and you have to really control it. The sulfite that they use is to prevent contact with oxygen, so that they don't lose the fruit from picking the fruit and from its way to the winery, which is also why they pick it at night, so that they kind of have a slower reaction with the oxygen. There is this other way of wine growing, winemaking. It's called biodynamic. It's a little bit like a witchcraft, where they would put horse manure into a cow horn, and then they bury it into under the soil, let it absorb the sun's energy, and then they will take it out and spray it like fertilizer. And then the way that they harvest, the way that they do certain things, also follow certain lunar and weather schedule. So they have a certain calendar that they follow. So it's kind of like witchcraft, kind of like doing like a magical summoning, if you will, to allow the wine to absorb the earth and the nature's energy. And the way that they make wine, it somehow works. And in a region that it's usually wet, like a Chateau Latour in Bordeaux, they were actually able to fully utilize the biodynamic, and they don't use any kind of pesticide. And the use of sulfite or without using sulfite, that's more like a natural wine, which you have very, very little intervention into the winemaking. You let it start fermenting on its own, you let it stop fermenting on its own, and you don't put any kind of sulfite to prevent oxygen from contact. So you create a really, really funky wine. And it has a lot of different wild flavors that you won't get from a normal wine. And some people like them, some people don't. And there's a natural wine movement that really promote this. And it creates a different other different trends. And France has officially recognized natural wine as a legally binding term. So they have regulations on that as well. So they have recognized that as something that will create quality wines. So to not use sulfite, it can be a good thing if you do it properly. I think we are at the end of the time. Thank you very much. This is so awesome. I can talk for another few hours if you don't slap me.
No, this was amazing. Yeah, we're at the hour mark, and I mean, I want to keep going. I have so many questions on here that I was ready to ask, but I mean, I didn't get to because this was so informative, and I love how everyone else got involved. So, but the good news is you are available for questions. I'm going to share your info here, and as I share your screen, can you just let everyone know? Obviously, right now you're not doing in-person classes, but what are you still offering?
The 15% of classes I'm giving are for the level 1. Level 1 is a 6-hour long course that we go through more in depth on how to properly taste wine and what are the different styles of wine and what are some of the internationally important grape variety and the region that we go through. And the exam typically will happen on the same day. It's like a 30 multiple choice question, and if you pass, you get the level 1. Now, I also offer level 2 and level 3 for wine. I also teach spirits. So if you want to learn more about tequila, whiskey, scotch, vodka, gin, I offer that class as well. So there are level 1 and level 2. So if you want more information, go to my website, and there are online courses available, but I wouldn't be personally teaching them, but you can still get the same amount of knowledge out of it, just that you will have to purchase the sample yourself. And it will end up to be a lot more expensive if you want to drink them all. And what I really like about in-class teaching is that everybody share that experience, and I can also do fine-tuning with the way that you're tasting. And it's more interactive that way, which I love. But awesome. Here's my email, here's my website, find out more, and you're welcome to ask me any questions.
So we are about to draw for the prize here. Well, prizes, I should say. Before I do though, I just want to share, well, let's see, I guess that didn't work. Hold on one second here. I'm just gonna share one more thing. Well, there we go. All right, so in general, guys, I mean, obviously we've all been at home sitting on the couch, a lot of us. If anyone has any injuries, aches, or pains, feel free to call the clinic. The number is there. You can take a screenshot. We're here to answer any questions you have. We can talk to any of our therapists. Again, thank you, Chamber, for helping put this on. Just for anyone who wants to know, these videos will be put up both on our website, the Chamber website, and their Facebook, so you can rewatch it and learn anything you want to learn. Follow us on Instagram. All of our updates for new webinars that are coming up will be posted. Again, you can go to our website to register for future webinars. You can also go to the Chamber website, go to their events page. This Thursday, for all the parents out there that have little kids at home, we have Lift Fitness coming on to basically tell us how we can come up with fun and creative ways to keep our kids busy so they don't drive us crazy. The following week, we're going to be doing a runner's injury prevention, as well as how to choose the proper shoe if you would like to run. And then the week after that, we've actually got an interior designer coming on to help us figure out how to make our houses or our office spaces look so awesome. So if you do like these, please share it with anyone, friends, family. Really, again, thanks everyone for supporting local. And let's do the draw here. So we got 6 winners. They do have to be present. So Stephanie will make sure that whoever I draw is still here. The first winner, Allison Summer. Ooh, I don't think I saw her on this list. She's gonna regret that. I'm gonna make fun of her for it. All right. The first winner potentially is Shirley. Is Shirley's in here? No? All right. Everyone's chances are getting better.
So, but Aaron, some people are named like iPad and iPhone. So if Aaron does call your name, please let us know if you're an iPad or an iPhone.
Ooh, good call. All right. Well, I'll continue here. Is Mike? Jolnick? Jolnick? No? Oh boy. How about Joanne? I believe Joanne asked a question. And Allison is here. Okay, so 2 of them are gone. So we got Allison and Joanne is a winner. By the way, I will connect the winners with Kai, so you will get your prize, don't worry. Number 3 is Sarah Kennedy. Are you guys all together? Sarah and Stephanie and Allison? I'm gonna assume no until heard otherwise. Alexandra Pesa. Whoop. So that's 3 gone, 3 more. Oh, they are together. So there's 4 gone, 2 left. And Chelsea Scott. 1 more. Oh, we also have one more prize I forgot. But I will tell that in a second. Oh, Bellin, I was praying you'd win because you had so many questions. So good for you, you deserve it. And then we're drawn here for a free physiotherapy assessment. Treatment can be used at any time, once we open, of course. And it is not going to be my sister because she doesn't even live here. Sid, is Sid here? Nope. And this person fell out. Hogan? Nope. All right. Mandy Jen, she here? She was here, so if she left, she deserves to win because she was here. All right, so that is it for today. Thanks again, everyone. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you all on Thursday. Take care. Thanks again, Kai.
Thank you, everyone.